Right, let's turn now to the Minister at the Constitutional Development and Justice Ministry, Minister Thembi Simelane. Minister, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time this evening. We're going to talk to you about, of course, the cleanup currently going on at the Master's office. But, of course, this is a matter that falls within your purview, so it would be a good moment for you to reflect on this particular moment and what it means. Others are saying, well, why was this extradition quickly done when we are still awaiting the Guptas to be extradited?
Well, good evening. I think we do give updates and brief. There's quite a number of extraditions actually that we're working on. And I must admit that it's not one of the easiest or fastest processes. It depends also on cooperation. But each and every country has got to convince itself firstly as to whether there is a legitimate case that its resident is supposed to go and respond to fairly in another country. So it is a process. For example, my team at the department went to Swaziland last week. They went to Malawi. So we're hopeful to be getting responses on the two countries, on the Bushiri and the AKA matter. We're struggling, I must admit, with the UAE in terms of their slow pace response on the additional information that they needed, which the country has provided with regard to the extradition of the Gupta brothers. But the NPA is seized with such matters, and we're hopeful that overall they'll be able to make successful wins and gains for our country, and the alleged perpetrators will come and face the might of the law.
Did you get a report on the Estina matter and why it would have been struck off the roll due to undue delays, I suppose, as the court would have reflected?
Well, we're arguing that there were no undue delays. I had a very lengthy discussion with our legal team at NPA, and I got a full briefing this morning, which was very satisfactory. The defense team requested for the Gupta leaks, the leaks, if you will recall, there were what was called Gupta leaks, which were online. And around March, April, they were provided with the hard copies, and they wanted online access, which was made available to them by the NPA in around June. And we did believe, as a department, of course, led by the NPA, that we are ready to deal with the case and we are ready for hearing. And that is why the NPA came out quickly and fast yesterday to ascertain South Africans that we are ready to roll back the matter and continue with it. Remember, the very same extradition of what we're talking about this evening is related to all the Free State cases, the asbestos, the estate, which is the human settlement case, and the Department of Agriculture, where the Estina Dairy farm matter was. So we are confident as a department that NPA is in the right track and the case will be put back into the roll, and we are ready to proceed with this hearing.
Now, of course, Lekgotla having met this past week, one of the matters that it would have reflected on is precisely that, matters that have got to do with allegations of state capture and organizational integrity, calling, of course, on that work of the Commission to be certainly taken seriously and those recommendations followed through. How are you beefing up the NPA in this particular case? Because the concern is that these state capture corruption cases are complicated and there is a lack, maybe, if not resources, but of expertise that are able to unbundle these particular matters.
Well, we've got quite a bit of, yes, it's complex cases. One, we've got capacity issues with regard to skills, particularly in forensic and cyber interpretation and analytics in terms of the data, the information that needs to be, processed through the investigation so that the prosecution can take place. But then, secondly, is also the volume, the number of information, if you will recall how long the commission and the paper or the data that it got to receive that needs to be taken through. But you might have seen the NPA statement. They've already appointed two senior counsels who will be part of the independent directorate, which is specifically formed in the NPA to deal with state capture, but not necessarily only state capture, but priority crimes, which will also be looking into chasing the crime and the corruption, particularly in matters of money laundering, maladministration, fraud, and related cases, so that they could be prioritized. So already began to beef up. It already has a DDG who's working on the full establishment, and I think they will be ready now to roll onto the cases in terms of investigation and putting them through into the role for them to be heard. And of course, you are correct, the ANC did emphasize as part of the renewal program, but also part of ensuring that we turn the tide against crime and corruption in the country. We begin to move on those cases and give even those who are called allegedly perpetrators a chance to defend themselves, so that a finding and an outcome could be given and they'll be able to continue with their lives, and law will take its course in cases where they are found to have transgressed in one way or the other.
Yeah. Let's come to this then, Minister, what of course we wanted to talk to you about. It's a matter that's been going on for a while, maybe at least since 2020, that your predecessor would have started the process of rectifying the master's office. Many saying it's a nest of corruption. In fact, the legal associations are saying that there is a mess in how, for example, the estate of the deceased are being managed, how guardian funds are being handled, how the appointments of curators are being handled, registration of trusts, and so on and so forth. What is really crippling the master's office, according to your own assessment, now that you're sitting in that chair?
Well, it's quite it's an office that deals with quite a number of issues. As you say, the Guardians Fund, the deceased estates in its entirety. They also deal with the sheriffs. They also deal with liquidators. They deal with legal practitioners, which represents these people. But in the main, it's our online system that has been introduced in order to try and resolve all these issues. In 2024, if you still have a system that is not digitized, you can't track your file online, you can't update information that is needed, you constantly have to go and do personal or physical visit. I think that has been our main challenge, and that's what Minister Lamola dealt with, as you correctly indicated. He started the process of digitizing all our master's office, completed it somewhere around the beginning of the year in January. We did the online trainings. We actually even now have loaded on our Facebook, on our YouTube, on how as a family member who can claim on a deceased estate, what are you supposed to do? You can now track and follow up. And we then completed with the appointment of estate controllers, estate online controllers. Suffice to say that we still have to need to do an update in the masters in Cape Town. And if you look into the complaints of last week in the media, were mostly about the Cape Town office. I must admit there we only have one estate controller, and the department is looking into beefing up additionally. I mean, the bigger the vast the area and the population, obviously such cases, but we're looking into increasing the threshold as well. If an estate is beyond or above 250,000, it's deemed to be outside what the masters is. And we think that threshold is too minimal. It needs to be increased a little bit so that people could also be able to deal with the issues beyond what the master's office could be able to do. So beyond the online and the tracking, then you can then make your appointment online into the system, and it grants you an appointment, and you are able to go and visit the office, so that we avoid the congestion that happens into the early hours. From early hours around 3, 4, people start queuing in some of the master's offices. We are appreciating the fact that particularly our elders, our grandmothers, our mothers, who are mostly custodian of grandchildren, do believe in a physical visit. But we are looking into the integration of the system. For example, with SARS and pension fund, we have got the CHIAMISO, which is the big mine workers pension fund, which we are now addressing their issues directly with the mine and the mining body online, so that the beneficiaries don't have to move from the Eastern Cape into the Northwest, where the main offices of the fund are. And all those alternatives and systems are what are going to be able to give us. I mean, if you're a government employee, for example, and we are a department, a partner like you, wherever you will be working, what is the use of us not linking the system so you could be able openly to apply, get all the details online? You are using a smartphone, you could be able to do that. We're not saying the system will not have glitches. Glitch one, we are upgrading our own bandwidth in all the master's office. It does tend to hang, particularly in Limpopo and in the Eastern Cape. And that shows you it is because of the rural nature of our provinces and some pockets of areas in KwaZulu-Natal, and the department is dealing with that. We are putting in almost all our courts, but prioritizing about 102 this year, a generator, so that there's non-stop a service provision. And we're looking into, as we add more staff, into ensuring that the master's office work every day, even though there will be a huge backlog. And these backlogs are not only in the master's office. This afternoon, I was meeting with the Judge President Mlambo, with the Deputy Judge President Letwaba, looking at the road accident fund backlog. You might have read about it, and we have found the solution. We will be dealing with separate courts, which will deal with rough matters. We'll allocate additional judges to what amount that the budget will allow us to do. But we do believe that in the process of between now and around the end of November, if we do with the rationalization strategy, where the accident in the province where it happened, it needs to be heard in that court or high court, so that the rough matters don't pile up in Johannesburg and Pretoria, which is currently the situation now. So I think we're turning the corner at justice, just to make sure that we all deal with the access, and we provide access for everybody. I must mention also, yes, there is a rot, and as you have indicated, in the SIU, under the proclamation that President Cyril Ramaphosa signed, the report indicated, and they are on suspension. In fact, the hearings have started sitting. I've processed 2 discharge or dismissals, as we will put it, just last week, of some of those officials. 3 of them resigned, but the claim with regard to what the NPA will be pursuing for that the government loss has been incurred, so that they could be able to pay the money back even if they've left the service. So out of the 13 that were fingered in the SIU, we are roughly moving at around 7 now in terms of ensuring discipline. There's a high vacancy rate, no head who resigned at the masters, which is one of the problems. We're having an acting chief master, and we feel that we need to fill that position so that we can be able to hold somebody accountable. So in the main, that's what our turnaround strategy is about. And we would like to urge our communities to also give us feedback on what is their experience as they try. And myself and DM will be visiting unannounced all the master's offices, just to check the progress on the online system, its functionality, but also how human are we as government, how cautious are we as a department when we service our people who are in trouble and in need.
So indeed, the modernization turnaround plan would address, as you put it, the lack of responsiveness, the long queues, misplaced files, and other issues that have been cited by the Complaint Management Committee. And of course, you've addressed the question of insufficient staff. What do you make of these allegations of a team of agents that are operating like the Broederbond at the master's office there?
Well, I'm expecting we've sent a team with the DM to just look. We have what we call a database, a panel of all either sheriffs, liquidators. So it's very easy with the CSD system to be able to pull out, and you see and you do a comparison who else. We have a preliminary report, and it does indicate that one and the same companies do receive quite a lot of business with very minimal PDIs, that is previously disadvantaged individuals or service providers. And we're trying to look into that system and really get in depth on why such anomalies are happening. And we are glad that our communities are raising such issues so that we can be able to look into them, because what the PFMA allows for each and every provider is that we need to be equitable, we need to be fair in our appointment, we need to be efficient in our distribution of work, but we also need to be ensure that the system is effective by its very own nature. So if you digitize, for example, once you have reported a case today and you have opened a file, you have submitted all the information that is necessary for you to be given, for example, an appointment as an executor letter, you are able to track how long did the appointment letter comes, contrary to when a file is manual. So it means I need to go and really recalculate. But the system can calibrate for me every end of the day, like the SARS system does. It tells you who has logged in, how often, how long did he or she stay into the system, did he load all the e-returns, and how quick was the file closed or a response sent to a particular text response. And we're trying to modernize our system. And that is why the pairing also with SARS, because most of the legitimate information with regard to your tax compliance, which delays the estates in the main, also comes as a partner from SARS. And we're hopeful that learning from them as well will be able to maximize on the experience that they now have on running an online system and conclude on all the cases. By the way, that's not the only online. I'm telling the viewers at home who are having this opportunity, we're hiring over 250 maintenance officers in almost all our 258 courts. The intention is that when we issue an order of maintenance, we are going to link it and check it with SARS as to whether Thabo does pay and support his children. And if you don't do that, woe unto you.
Minister, appreciate your time as always. Thank you very much for coming on. Justice and Constitutional Development Minister, Thembi Simelane.